Good morning, everybody. This is the Grit, Grace, and Progress. Can't even get our name right. I got Tiffany, I got Lawrence, and I got Greg Battle here with us. My favorite people, my favorite time in the morning. We got some crazy things going on this week, and I just want to just highlight a couple of them right quick. We had a DEI blackout yesterday. We know Joy Reid and Lester Holt and many others got fired this week, taking out our black journalists off of some of our cable news networks. The sad news of Roberta Flack and Gene Hackman, they passed this week. You know, the soulful singer of Roberta Flack, and she did duets with Peabo Bryson and many others. Then you got Gene Hackman, he played the villain, he's played every role you can imagine. And then we have the cautiousness of wanting to fly in planes. We are really cautious. Like I know, we'll get into it. And then I don't know if y'all saw last night. It was the Planet Parade last night. The Planet Parade. 7 planets lined up. It depends on where you was at. You could probably see them. You probably didn't see Uranus and I think it was Pluto because they so far away. So we're gonna jump right into it. We're gonna just recap some of these things. So how many of you all participated in the blackout yesterday?
I
I
did.
did.
You
I
did?
did.
Did you?
Yes,
What,
absolutely.
so what was your day like yesterday, Greg?
My day was the normal taking care of my mom and dad, making sure my grandson got home from daycare, picking up kids from elementary school, taking them back to the daycare.
Mm-hmm.
Just my normal routine. But my wife made chili the night before. We got everything all cooked up.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing I really bought was some barbecue and some ribs, of course, from a black-owned establishment.
Okay. Okay. I hear you. I hear you. What about you, Tiff? What you do yesterday?
Just work and school for me.
Okay.
But I definitely got all my essentials earlier in the week, and I saw the social media outreach about the day, and I fully supported, cause and action behind it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely supported and didn't spend a dollar, not gas, not anything. I know the purpose was kind of to put money into, black owned business and things like that, but I just didn't spend it all.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I saved some money yesterday. What about you, Lawrence?
Did absolutely nothing. I, st-
My
I
pro
stayed
black brother,
home.
boy.
I stayed home. The only thing I did, I left and picked up my daughter and brought her over, but that was about it. That was
That's what's
it.
up. That's what's up, man. I did have a doctor's appointment yesterday, and I had to go, go take care of, get a physical and everything yesterday. But it was a black doctor. So, we were talking yesterday. I said, I'm supposed to be blacking out today. He was like, yeah, man, don't spend a dime. I said, I was supposed to be black out with you, but because you're a brother, I had to go ahead and spend my money. We cool. And so, they did say necessities, and that was something I need to take care of yesterday. After that, I did come home and I made pancakes. I cooked at home. Me and my wife chilled, watched TV, and then, you know, made me some egg rolls, and I did everything at home yesterday. We just hung out. So, we're going to deep dive into a little bit about later today about protesting and the importance of it and some of the results that come from it. But what's amazing today is as I Google search DEI blackout or if I Google search economic blackout, I don't see a lot of results like I've seen in the past of people protesting. And I'm going to look at it again, like right now. I'm going to put economic boycott. And it's amazing that I don't really see nothing. And it seems like this should be a news report, something. They all talk to everything you see is it's coming up this Friday. People coming together to boycott, People's Union, USA, this and that. But I don't see like the impact at all. And I'm sure there were some impacts because I saw too many videos yesterday. I don't know if you all saw any Instagram videos and TikToks, people going through Target and Walmart, and some of the stores were sort of empty. I was kind of like, okay, so it is working. in some parts of the time, like Louisiana had one. What was that, Greg? You're muted, Greg.
I'm sorry, my grandson got up. Did you search blackout? Blackout Friday.
So you see anything on that?
I see a couple videos, a couple articles on the economic blackout.
Let me try that again. I see
I
some
just searched
videos
blackout
here.
Friday. Yeah.
See, I see 15 hours ago. I see pictures of people protesting. They standing in front of look like I'm not sure what it is. Some orange cones there. Let me see. A grassroots organization asking people not to spend any money Friday. See, this is before. This is okay. 6 o'clock p.m. yesterday, and that economic blackout promoted on social media was underway Friday, but with no clear indication of how many people took part or whether national retailers and restaurants and chains are noticing the effects from the grassroots project. I want to see
I don't
something.
expect any of the white people to go ahead and say that this is what happened. I just look at what's going on in the periphery.
Yeah,
And of course, Trump had his television performance out there just to try to usurp all of the news
that
just
was a
by him
distraction.
acting a jerk. Yeah, yeah.
That was, I think
So
that was a planned distraction, actually. I really do. Because it was just too convenient for that to happen like that midday. And I'm like, wow, what's that just didn't look right to me. It just didn't seem like that was the case. What you think about that, Lawrence? You think that there are distractions where they happen to do things like that?
Everything he does is a distraction. It's it the this administration really is a self-serving administration. It serves zero purpose to the American public. Um, I think when it comes down to the blackout, I have mixed feelings on it. I'm always going to protest no matter what,
Hmm.
but my problem is there's a lot of people that don't. The unity of the whole thing is lacking. Um, there's not as many people engaged. I think most people have just pretty much most people I know they've pretty much given up hope. They're just like, you know what, we got 4 more years of this nonsense that could turn into 8 easily
Hmm.
if people don't wake up and get their stuff together. Also, um, I think we messed things up because I think some people went out like the day before or Thursday or Wednesday, and like just stocked up on stuff. So you spent the money still. You just spent it a day before. So economically, the stores probably didn't feel the impact. Or today, all the stores are going to be crowded. So it's like, I didn't go out and drive and look on purpose at a lot of things, but I know when I went and picked up my daughter, I drove past Kroger, I drove past Home Depot, I drove past Walmart, and it wasn't like the parking lots was empty. It wasn't like packed, but there were still a lot of people out and a lot of people, shopping and getting what they need and stuff like that. So it's not. I don't think the impact was really felt the way we would like it to be. I think it's one of those deals where we really would like to, if you really want to impact it, a day isn't enough. You got to do like a full week. It's got to
Right.
be, everybody got to lock in, if you can do a week, if you can do a month, but figure out a way to really impact this thing by
Right.
making them feel it. And it has to be a joint effort from everybody. It can't just
Right.
be black and brown people.
Yeah.
It has to be everybody. And the
Hmm.
problem is, some people are waking up because they're finally being affected by some of these changes that are happening. But it just takes one distraction, one hot button topic on Fox News or whatever to say, oh, this is what these people are doing, and create a boogeyman thing. And then all of a sudden, everybody's kind of just off doing their own thing again.
Right.
So it's one of those deals. People have lacked discipline when it comes to holding strong, being standing strong behind what you believe in,
Hmm.
and being a support system to others that you're trying to support.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I would like to see this go a little deeper, but one of the other topics that came up this week that's been like lighting up the social media, lighting up all over the news was Joy Reid getting canceled. Her show got canceled last week, and I think we briefly talked about this, during the week and amongst our team. And people have mixed reactions to it because news shows get canceled. But it was odd that it was so many journalists that were people of color that lost their jobs, and they were voices that I would always put people like this, the voice of the streets or voice of the people who don't have a voice. The same way you see an athlete or an entertainer speak out on politics or something, they always tell them, this is they'll stay in your lane, stay in your lane. But actually, you look at the when you have a platform and you have a following, I think it's the duty of American people to speak up, to be able to say something. And you all know me, I do speak up. I'm a person that I run my mouth when I need to. But for somebody like Joy to get removed from the MSNBC like that abruptly, they tell her on a Saturday, you know, her last day is going to be Monday. And you think about all the ones in the past, Tiffany Cross, she was removed. You had Don Lemon was removed. That's another story though. But Don Lemon was removed. Um, what was her name? Was it Miss Harris Perry or Perry Harris? Before Joe Reed came on, she was on. They removed her from off the air. Then you had commentators who would come on like consultants, consultants like Karen Hunter. She was basically not asked to come back because of her outwardness. Joe Madison, because he was so out forward, he's like, I'm not gonna allow you to lie in my face on live TV. I gotta confront you. Rest his soul. He passed away last year. And then you have people like Roland Martin. He was a commentator on these shows. He was removed because people are so out, open with it. I think Bakari Sellers is going to be the next one. They're going to just take him off the air because Bakari Sellers is the same way. He's outspoken. It's just so many of them. And what is the pushback on the truth is what I don't understand sometimes because we could always go back and find the truth. We can look it up and see it. We can bring back tapes and everything. So it's not like you can keep whitewashing it where the truth doesn't come out. And this I know Greg's been around for a long time. I'm not saying that in a disrespectful way. I'm saying it in a way of wisdom because he's seen a lot and he's attentive to these things. I know you can go back and you can just see how just taking a regular news story that we can see in our community and the story is distorted. I mean, we can go back to the pictures of Trayvon Martin, how they did those pictures of him to make it look like he was a villain when he was just a kid getting some Skittles. So they distorted the story. Now we got the voices that tell the story and they want to take him away. So, I mean, give me something like, what was you're muted again, Greg? You're muted.
I'm navigating a family morning. Everybody's getting up. Um, the the thing is, they always want to discredit the truth, and they count on people not doing their own research,
Mm-hmm.
not doing their own vigilance about uh, looking it up for yourself. My mom is 90 years old, and she still watches Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, just so that she can hear the politics.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she has her own way that she's going to push back. She didn't get to be 90 years old from Tennessee, not knowing what to do with Jim Crow and all of that. But they had a way of building community that was based in facts. Once you get knowledge, no one can take it away from you.
Right.
But today, everybody's looking for the cliff notes. Everybody's looking for a quick way to find some understanding. But some things you have to read and sit with. And if you're not willing to sit with it and think about it and let it resonate in your spirit, if you don't even trust your spirit because you're so busy, you ask me about my day, there's always something that comes up that comes out of left field. And if you're not centered in yourself, you get pushed off your square. I believe what I can verify. If I can't verify it, then it's just someone else's opinion. I got opinion of my own. That doesn't mean anything. So I'm always grateful to hear people that want to verify, come with facts and receipts, and because my mind can be changed. You
Right.
know, I'm teachable.
Right.
If I'm not teachable, I'm putting my life on the line, and that doesn't help my family.
Right. No, that makes sense. So when you look at it from a media standpoint, like the stories you're telling, I'm sure you could go back and remember the times where things were completely distorted in the way the media had talked about our situation, whether it was good or bad, it was downplayed. But when you take the voice away from us, where the story isn't told properly, what kind of impact would that give us? Give our society in general?
We're always looking for instant gratification. We want the answer right now. We don't want to invest the time into being with myself and my spirit and my thoughts. But those are personal things, and everybody pushes back against it.
Yeah.
But I can no longer let people tell me that I don't see what I see,
Right.
that I'm not hearing what you said, and you said it out your mouth. You know, you can't tell me something and then say, I didn't do that last week. My mom said half the truth is good as a lie,
Right.
and lying liars lie. So once you lie, how am I ever going to believe you?
Right. No, no, I definitely feel that. So putting in that kind of in that kind of perspective, we know it's personal, but what about? I mean, from any four of you all can speak out on this. There has to be some type of impact to how we teach, how we review history, how we assess the stories. I mean, just like yesterday, we just talked about the distraction of Donald Trump and what happened. Although that's not an important issue because it is an important issue the way that happened. But in our day to day lives, me personally, I don't think the Ukraine Russia war is impacting us right now as going to the grocery store and seeing these high prices, or the fact that you know us people trying to get jobs, or you just had a great job and then you had it removed from you because somebody didn't like the way you did your job, in a sense of you investigated him as the president or former president, so he takes your job because you did something like that. Those to me are more impactful to our society. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, any one of y'all can speak up on that one because I know that it can happen to any one of us through our jobs. Somebody could just take our job away because of how we view things politically.
Yeah, it's I would say it's been scary times for a while, but it's even worse now. I have a close friend who's actually dealing with it right now. He works for FEMA. He was one of those people that got that email to give a bullet points on what you did last week.
Oh wow.
Um, he's one of a few blacks in his department, um, and for them to even consider getting rid of departments like FEMA, and certain segments of FEMA, which is crazy to me for them to even consider something like that. Um, I don't even know what that feels like to have somebody that's not your boss, just some random email address, send you these emails, and you're looking around. Your boss has no answers. You have no answers. The leadership in your office, they have no answers. They just everybody's in the dark.
Right.
Um, I don't understand how that how that would make you feel, especially as a man who I know he is the breadwinner in his family. So it's like, this is really uncertain times, and so and then to have small children and a wife and all that stuff.
Right.
For myself, my my office, I can tell you they're pretty much very right leaning. You know, I don't really say much, but they all know how I feel because I don't because if they say something sideways and I don't hold back, I'll speak up. But I know that there are certain people that are in in areas of their lives, as far as their work lives, it's a very toxic environment for them.
Right.
And I don't know what that feels like. I just know that it cannot feel good,
Right.
especially as a single mom. You know, you're trying to raise your kids, and you know you got this craziness happening, and you don't know if you're going to get laid off or not. As a man that's trying to lead a family, you know,
Right.
to have this lingering over your head, and there's no one that can help you.
Right.
Congress seems to be, you know, just everybody's quiet. You know,
Mhm.
there are people on the left that are speaking up and saying things, but they're not the majority,
Mhm.
right? And so, who's going to step up?
Right.
You watch these press conferences, and this person is supposed to be president. He just sits there while these random people, I'm not going to name any names, but
Right.
random people are speaking up and running meetings and saying things, and you're just sitting there like, this is our leader
Right.
supposedly.
Right.
um and I can only imagine that a lot of people are feeling certain ways about how we are how we are how this government and how this country is standing up for them. And
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people feel abandoned.
Right. No, I totally agree with that. What about you, Tiff? What do you think about that from a job perspective, um, where there's that fear that some people, it depends on what kind of job you have, and also even if you're trying to get a new job, do we think there could be some discrimination or pushback on people of when they what they call others? It could be anything from, you know, your 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 ethnicity, being a handicap. You could be a wounded veteran, or you could be a single mom, or you could be in the LGBTQ community. It could be anything that people could discriminate against. Do you think that type of fear now will arise, or those actions of discrimination will rise moving forward?
Well, yeah, Mars, I definitely think it's starting to kind of trend backwards.
Hmm.
We're kind of going back into like 50s timing, like 40s timing. Like it's definitely a feeling of, I shouldn't even speak on this. Let me not even integrate my personal life at all into this workplace.
Right.
You know, I'm kind of like, just I'm here to clock in, do my job, and clock out. Like, let me not get into anything that is a touchy subject because God forbid I'm Christian or Catholic or you don't agree or,
Right.
gay, straight, whatever the case may be. It's
Right.
kind of like a very rough climate in any workforce. Um, and I find myself, even when I've applied for jobs, I just check, care to not answer,
Yeah.
care to not answer this, care to not answer that.
Right.
And I think, again, going back on what Greg said, is knowledge is power, and you need to know your rights coming into any kind of workforce.
Right.
Okay. There are questions that employers can't ask you.
Yeah.
And so you need to know that going in. And I've kind of kept a mindset to keep my personal life and, asking about other people's personal lives out of the workplace, just
Right.
because that is kind of where we are in society right now, that you are either frowned upon or, people look at you a little differently. And, you know, um, it's definitely a different social world out here now. It really is. I mean, especially with social media, employers
Right.
go straight to your social media and they say,
Yeah.
"Oh, this looks a little questionable. Oh, they might associate with this, political group or
Right.
social group," or and they just judge you based on it. They don't even know you as a person.
Right. Right. Right.
So, it definitely is there, and it definitely is cause for being uncomfortable in the workplace. But I mean, you feel like you can't even be yourself sometimes.
Right. Well, I'm gonna have a question because you mentioned something early on in your comment about that is you said it reminds you of the 50s and 40s. Neither one of us was around at that time, but it's really interesting that you say that because I look at your generation. Um, you're younger than the rest of the panel here, so I'm gonna use it this way, and that's not no disrespect to anybody, but it's where you came up in an era where basically you lived through social media. Your era is basically social media. You look at um, the freedoms and the rights that you have had in your and as you grew up. This has to be almost like a culture shock for myself, Greg, and Lawrence. We're all 50 plus. We're looking at it like, wow, here we go again. And we didn't see it as bad as our parents did. So when you look back on it, does it make you review history more, or does it make you say, like, wow, how can I make some comparisons, or what am I about to experience? Because right now, you actually have less rights than your mom did. Isn't that odd? When it used to be the opposite way, where she probably had less rights than you. But it's flipped as of the last 2 to 3 years. What do you think about that?
I mean, Mars, I'd love to say, look how far we've come,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, and let that sit with yourself. Like just that statement alone. Like
Yeah.
I would love to say, look how far we've come, but really, how far have we come?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like constantly, social media is showing, I don't know if you guys where everyone lives, but
Okay.
just recently, I think this maybe even came out yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have Westlake, Ohio police versus, of course, a black family, a black couple. Their car had been coming back stolen, something like
Yeah.
that. And the whole situation was blown out of
I saw
proportion to the
that.
point this man could have lost his life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You've got like 7 police officers versus like 2 to 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And this cop is like asking him, like, oh, you want to get hit with this 40 or 44 millimeter, whatever he said to him.
Yeah.
Completely unprofessional, completely uncalled for. I mean, this man had his hands up. He was
Yeah.
of no threat except for maybe his aggravation with the situation, but not threatening as in he didn't have a weapon.
Yeah.
He wasn't coming at the police aggressively.
Yeah.
And it just those situations. And
Yeah.
imagine if that woman wasn't filming. Imagine if he was alone.
Yeah.
I would love to say, look how far we've come.
Yeah.
But again, it's like the good old boys, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's like this power trip, this,
Yeah.
this superior feeling. And I'm honestly, I'm disgusted with it. I'm
Well,
disgusted with it. And that's just one example. Okay. We've seen
that's
many,
deep.
and many times they've led to way
Yeah.
more deeper conversations. Somebody's lost their life.
Yeah. Yeah. You're
So
absolutely right. I mean that that show. I mean not that show. That video I saw yesterday impacted me. It hit me deep yesterday. I was in that same situation. I've been there. Um, the difference was, it was my car that was stolen. Cleveland police, same example. Cleveland, this was like literally my son. You know my son Bryce. He was like 5 years old at the time, and I'll never forget it. I was going to me and my ex was going, and my daughter was going to pick him up from kindergarten. Kindergarten is half a day at that time. You get out at like noon at lunchtime, and I lived in Cleveland, the Glendale 146th Street area. I'm driving up. I can't remember the name of the street right now, but it goes if you take it, go all the way up through Warrensville Heights to Warrensville Center Road. From I think Glendale, it goes all the way straight up, and it turns into something else when you get to Warrensville. I had a cop follow
Talking
me.
about Invermere.
No, 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 it wasn't Invermere. Whatever, if you're on Glendale and you take it straight up toward Warrensville.
Yeah, you go around Joanne and then go back. It
I can't
changes
remember now.
names on the other side of the school.
Right, right. My son went to a school up that way, so we're going up. And when the name of the school I think was Adley Stevenson, I think it was.
Adlai Stevenson.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So we're going up the street there, and this cop was following me, and I'm like, I'm not really worried, but I had just got my car back maybe 2 weeks prior. It was stolen. I went downtown, got the release for my car and everything, and I'm going up the street. This car's following me. I get to Warrensville, and there's 3 cops like block me off right there. And I'm like surrounded. And they come and they ask me to get out the car, so I got my baby girl in the back seat. They take me in the back of the car, had me on the ground, took me on the ground, had a gun on me, had the knee in my back, and they're like, "This is a stolen car, this is that and other." And I'm like, wait, wait. I'm like freaking out. I almost peed on myself out there in the middle of the street. I was that nervous. And then the the officer's asking me about my car, and I said, "This is mine." And he said, "Well, show me your identification, like you on my back, like you take it out my back pocket." So I had the cop take the license, drop my wallet out my back pocket, look through my wallet, get my license out, cause I didn't, he got me. They got me all curled up, and you want me to get my wallet? I'm like, I don't want to reach for nothing. They see my identification, see that it's me, and they tell me that it's the Cleveland police fault. I get, I get their response because they think I'm driving a stolen car.
I don't.
No, no.
I don't.
Let me finish. Let me finish up. Not that they need to slam me on the ground and put a gun on me. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is to detain me like they did, in the sense of seeing who I was. I can get that part, but there's a way of doing that. I wasn't a threat when they stopped me. I didn't have a gun on me when they stopped me. I wasn't violent when they stopped me. So their attitude is what was wrong. Their procedure, how they went about it, was wrong. But what I'm saying is that to stop I'm thinking like, why are you following me? But to stop me, I get it. Ask me to get out the car, I get it. Ask for my ID, I get it. But there was no need to put me on the ground and put a gun on me. That's the part where I'm saying is where it escalates, because like the guy was saying, or the girl was saying yesterday in that video, I'm scared. I'm frightened. So when you're scared and frightened, your movements can do anything. And to an officer, that's a threat. We should have a way of better policing, better procedures. I know their lives are at threat also, but for the fact that that cop followed me so long, what was the person following me so long for? Um, it scared me. It scared the mess out of me. And I had to still go back downtown to get my car released again, or to tell them to get it off the list. Like I said, I don't want to misconstrue my word by saying I understand in the sense that they need to treat me like they did. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that I understand what they are trying to do. It's how they go about doing what they're doing is what's wrong, especially to us, because they're not going to do a white person like they did me. We've seen
Right.
them
And that
arrested.
was
We've
my
seen
point
them.
in saying that. So see, I understand what you're getting at and that how you feel, but my whole thing is this, right? Because I have some law enforcement background, I understand their process in running a tag.
Mm-hmm.
So when they run your tag through leads in
Mm-hmm.
their vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
they can see your picture with your
Yeah.
registration.
Right.
So they could have easily known, pulling you out of the car or approaching the car, that was you. Hey, I think there's been some misunderstanding, or maybe you haven't reported that your car was found, but we have this vehicle marked
Right.
as stolen, and we need your identification to match it to your registration, et cetera, because just like you said, it would not have been a white person. It
I
would
got a
have been a
question.
hey,
I got a
you
question,
know?
Tiff, about that. Okay, I get that about the picture. How long has it been that they could pull up your tag and see your picture? How long has that been going on? Do you know?
I mean,
I don't know. I'm
since
just
they've
asking.
had leads. I mean, they've
Okay.
had since they've had those CADs in their car, the computer
Yeah.
systems in their vehicles,
Yeah.
they can pull up your license photo
Yeah.
on their computers in their vehicles. So like you can't mistake your face. I mean,
Right.
it's not
Right.
like you're putting on wigs and changing your look and doing,
Right.
drag makeup or whatever. You're you. So like there is no, but hey, again, maybe to them all colored people look alike. Maybe
Right.
to them,
Right. Well, that's why
we didn't know. You
I
look
was
like a
asking
threat.
that. I was asking that question because I was looking at the time frame. Like I said, my son was 5, so that had to have been like what is that? 90? What would that have been from 97? 97. So that's why I was asking, how long has those systems been in the car? Okay, they came in place. Looks like 2003. 2003 with the establishment of the national standards CAD in law enforcement. So 2003. So that would have been my situation would have been before that. Before those systems were from what I'm reading now online. Now, going taking that perspective of saying they can see your picture without seeing your picture, it still doesn't justify their actions, is what I'm saying.
It doesn't justify utilizing any kind of lethal force or threatening
Yeah,
lethal force for a
exactly.
stolen vehicle. A
Right.
stolen vehicle. Would you do the same with a person that stole an item out of a store that
Per-
was worth,
yeah,
the value of a car? I
yeah,
mean, what are we talking about here?
yeah.
When is
For
that
us,
ever okay or appropriate? And you're only aggravating and heightening the fear in the situation. Okay, they
right,
did
right,
that, not you.
right,
It's like, hey, here's my hands, officer. My hands are on the wheel. Why am I being pulled over? They're not even
right,
explaining all that until they've detained you because you're
right.
already dangerous based on the color of your skin.
Totally agree. I really appreciate your analysis on that from a person with some law enforcement understanding of that. Um, it just like I said, the CAD system that was something that I had idea about, but I didn't know too much about it. But now that I see even when it came into play, 2003, which I didn't even know until I just looked that up. Have any of you all experienced something like that with a stolen car, Greg or Lawrence?
My experience wasn't with a stolen car,
Okay.
but my my growing up, my mom's best friend's husband was a Cleveland Vice detective, who eventually became the first Black deputy chief of police of Cleveland, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Bosie Mack. May he rest in peace. Uh, he taught my brother and I, his son and daughter, that when the police stop you, make sure you have your hands where they can be seen.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing you have to say is yes, sir, and no, sir.
Right.
And you do that until we get to you.
Makes sense.
That was just it. I've never had any police officer pull a gun on me.
Okay.
I've never had anything more than some verbal abuse, and I had that in 2017
Okay.
when I was driving Uber,
Gotcha.
and a white person ordered an Uber, and I was approaching. He had to cross the street, and he ran across the street in front of my car, so I had to stop. The police car that was behind me
Mm-hmm.
had to stop to not hit me.
Gotcha.
And that officer got out, told him, "You stand over there," and proceeded to berate me. "What do you think you're doing? Why are you doing this? I almost hit you." And I know that I'm 40 years older than he is,
Right.
but he wanted to make an example of me. And as a Black person in any situation, I always feel that white folks feel like they should make an example of me,
Yeah.
especially when they don't like what I've done.
Right. Right.
And what I see in this political landscape, this climate that's been created now, is that every white person feels empowered to treat me however they think. They have an opinion about what I'm doing.
Right.
And for right now, I'm too old to be scared or intimidated.
Right.
And I'm in a position, unlike you three, they are paying me not to come to work. But right now, we're being threatened too. My wife is disabled.
Mm-hmm.
You're dismantling all of the federal functions that sustain me. I was a federal employee. I'm a retiree. You cutting OPM.
Right.
You cutting Medicaid. You cutting all the things that affect my income.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
That affect my income, and that's just causing me consternation.
Yeah.
But see, as a Christian, I know I can live on God's checkbook,
Right.
and He can remove some things, and all I have to do is just show up to serve.
Right.
Now, the examples that we get, I've been blessed. I teach anti-racism. We having a book study on this book right here. Wait a minute.
You gotta get it up in front of that
Uh-oh,
camera.
I gotta cut off my
Get your filter on.
yeah.
Block it. It's blocking it. What's the name of it?
It's called
Read the name of it.
Brown Faces, White Spaces
Okay,
by
yeah, I've heard of that
Latasha
one.
Morrison.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wanted to read a part. I wanted to read a part in it that says when this ESPN lady Carrie Champion told LeBron James to shut up and dribble.
No, it wasn't Carrie Champion. That
It wasn't Carrie Champion.
Carrie Champion is the one who stood up for him, but that was the lady from Fox News, Laura Ingalls.
Kevin Durant.
Laura
Wasn't that
Ingalls.
Megan Kelly or something? Or no?
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't Lori. Carrie Champion is more of a. She's one who advocates for what LeBron was saying. She's on his side with that. But that was Laura Ingalls that told LeBron James to shut up and dribble. That was Laura
Yeah.
Ingalls from Fox.
But I wanted to read what his response was.
Yeah.
He put it in. It says, "Shut up and dribble, shut up and tackle, shut up and stand, shut up and get paid, shut up and just do your job, shut up and take off that hood, shut up and stop running, shut up and put your fists down, shut up and do you live around here? Shut up and you fit the description, shut up and put your hands up. Shut up and get out the car. Shut up and don't move. Shut up and get on the ground. Shut up and lay still. That is why we just can't stick to sports. Do you understand now?" And that applies in my life all the time.
Right.
You know, I've always tell folks that all my life there have been white folks trying to tell me how to be black, and they've never spent a black day in their life.
Right.
You know.
I totally.
So we're in a situation, this whole dismantling of the culture of America, this burning down this criminal enterprise that you showed up on a shore and decided, I like this land, I'm going to take this land, and people showed you how to survive because it took them quite a few years before they were able to put up a village here that survived.
Right.
You know, they had to learn from the indigenous people, and then they just take everything. This manifest destiny. I'm entitled to this because that's what my God has given me.
Right.
Well, all of us have a spiritual connection. Nobody has life on this planet without the blessing of God.
Right.
And nobody gets to choose how they show up.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's my soapbox.
So that means this has to go to a higher level then. You know, the effects of the economic blackout. Now, the thing about it that there was a lot of disputes yesterday on the news about this because everything that we're saying today, from policing to Lawrence talking about his friend with the federal job, the threat of the job being taken away, your experiences, mine, all these have to be a collective voice to try to get this thing straightened back out. And as a collective voice, through our actions, we can make change. You think back, and then one thing I look at with all of us, we grew up in an era where we didn't have to necessarily sacrifice anything to truly live. When I say sacrifice, we didn't have to give up anything to do our day to day. The people yesterday who decided not to shop, they weren't really inconvenienced, in our day and time in society. But if you look back at that Montgomery boycott, which was really, I would say, one of the last successful boycotts to really do an economic impact, and that was before I was born. That means that we did not take those examples that was given to us and take it to heart to where to say, if I was in that person's shoes, would I have been able to sacrifice that way? That lasted 13 months to give up the buses, the drive, taking the bus to work, to school, to church, to a family member's house. 13 months. That's a long time. Can you imagine not shopping at your favorite store right now for a year? Can you imagine not shopping on Amazon for a year? Can you imagine if you got a car that's about to break down? I'm not spending my money on a car right now. I'm not buying that car right now. I mean, simple. Those are sacrifices that my grandfather will probably say, that's nothing. But are we really in that mindset and that mode to create change? Are we willing to just go along? And I say that because we know that over like nearly 90 million people did not vote in that last election. That was an election that was able to change the course of what we see today. There are people who voted um, for Donald Trump who said he's going to do what these. He said he's going to do these things. I truly believe that people that voted for him thought that this would not happen to me. I know we've heard that saying because we now see the videos. They did not think this was going to happen to him. Those same voices now who are pushing back on that administration, are they at a point or will they come to a point in their life that they will line up with any four of us on saying this is what we need to do to make our country better? Have they reached that point yet? Does it take them losing that really good job with the federal government or that really good job at a corporate company and they start having cuts? Because not only is the federal government having cuts, a lot of corporate America companies are having cuts, as we saw in the well, actually, that was even a cut with the news stations. I mean, you want to put them on the same thing. That's something separate. But companies are making cuts. You know, I've been reading about them. I've seen them, like personally, not me saying I lost my job, but I've known where cuts are happening at jobs. So all these are factored in since inauguration. All these things have been happening since inauguration. I questioned this at one point. I even asked a person this week. I said, "Do you think that the cuts that are happening right now in our regular jobs were these cuts that were pre-planned prior to inauguration, or did they come about because of what Trump said after inauguration about budget cuts and the things that we're doing with DEI?" And that person couldn't really give me a clear answer. First, they said, "Oh, these were probably planned already beforehand." I don't believe that because you didn't see any indication of that prior to the inauguration. There was skeptical at election after the election, but at inauguration, there was before inauguration there was no hint of jobs doing massive cuts like we've seen. I still feel right now that we need a collective voice to boycott, to stand firm. For me, not shopping at any of these stores, I can do that. I can go to the local grow farmers and buy my eggs, my chicken, whatever I need to buy. As a matter of fact, if you think about it, us refraining from spending our dollars as heavily as we have, how much money do you think in the black community, the Hispanic community, the Asian community, the Indian community, how much money do you think households would save if they were to refrain their money from some of these things? We talk about wage gaps and everything. That is true. But what about our own personal savings? We can save money if we reduce spending at Amazon, Walmart, Target, and these stores. Something that then could go to better needs. We can't trust the stock market right now. So the only thing we can do is really save our money for our own businesses, anything like that. What are your thoughts on some of that?
Yeah, I think financial discipline is lacking, um,
Definitely.
and it's been happening over time. I think a lot of issues. I think there's a lot of reasons why people have issues with boycotting and sticking together. I think a lot of times it's fear because if I make too much noise or if I'm too vocal on certain things, this could affect my job. This could affect me and my family's livelihood, right? Um, I think sometimes people get very comfortable in what they have, and so they don't look at the big picture. If I sacrifice here in the long run, it's gonna make it better, if I do these things. And I think a lot of people struggle with making that choice. Um, Again, the unity is just not there. Back, during the civil rights era and stuff like that, the unity was there. People were sticking together and
Right.
making things happen. That unity does not exist anymore. I was watching a video about the Million Man March back
Right.
in was it 92?
95, 94.
Was it 90?
It
Yeah,
was
whenever it
earlier.
was.
Yeah, yeah,
That was the last show of outside of George Floyd, right?
hmm
That was the last show of, togetherness
right.
that I had seen for one voice, one mission going forward.
Yeah,
George Floyd was a worldwide outcry for change.
yeah. 95, by the
It
way.
fell on it fell on deaf ears,
Yeah,
but it happened, right?
yeah,
But it would only happen because of COVID. If COVID was not happening and people didn't have a choice but to stay at home, but to, whatever, people didn't have jobs, people, had jobs where they're working from home, so, you couldn't go to the arcade and to the movies and do all the things that people
yeah,
were doing, but because all that stuff was shut down.
yeah.
If it wasn't for COVID, I doubt that would have even happened as much, as big as it did.
Yeah. Well,
So,
you look also with COVID. I mean to cut you off, but you think about the George Floyd incident. I think that I think it could have been outrage because that was so blatant and so in our face, and we saw if it wasn't for that young girl recording that, I would say no. But I think that partially where you say people were at home, you had time to protest. If you're working, you're not going to be protesting as much, especially in the
yeah,
streets. I get that. But I'm looking at it from an economic standpoint of the racial discrimination that we've seen. That I think companies were pushing forward with uh, these DEI initiatives. And the only reason why I say that because remember at that same time, all this history was coming up. You had Tulsa really hit Tulsa, Oklahoma really hit the mainstream media really hard. It was all over social media about Greenville and how that city was torn apart. People didn't know that history. That was like really egregious to be able to sit there and be like, wow, these people who were self sufficient lost everything. Lost
yeah.
everything. Literally, government sanctioned planes were dropping bombs on people, on homes, like wiping out a whole community.
And
That, go ahead.
that was all, from that TV show. Because I didn't even know their history until I was
Yeah.
watching that show, and then they were doing that, and then I started Googling like this really happened.
That was
And I was like,
Watchmen, right?
oh,
Was that
yeah,
Watchmen?
Watchmen.
Yeah.
Yep.
See, I heard about it from my great grandmother, but she didn't know the name of the city. She was just, telling this story. And I think I've told this before. She was telling this story about this town that had all these bombs and they just killed all these black people, these rich black people. They killed them all. They had their own thing. And I was like sixth grade. I never connected the dots until later in life, maybe about 10 years ago. Um, I was back in Ohio, and that story came up. Me and some other educators, I was teaching at a school, and this story came up, and we got to talking about it, and I was like, I connected the dots. But you think about the fact of Greenville, Oklahoma. We had the whole thing with the history of Aunt Jemima came out at that same time. All this history started coming out. The Henrietta Lacks story came out around that time with the cells. They using her cells and they started making medicine from her cells. That stuff came out. The doctor that was doing those horrendous acts on black women, uh, uh, trying to find a cure for cancer. I think it was cancer, and he's doing these pelvic exams with no anesthesia, no nothing. I can't think of his name right now, but all these stories of how our bodies were, and our worth was not valued at all. That's when these companies were saying, because employees are pushing back, like, why can't I get this supervisor job? Why can't I get this job within my company? And that's when DEI initiatives start rolling out. I think that all that time period with history and the fact in real time, we're seeing that discrimination in real time made a difference. And I think there might have been protests, but I don't think, to your point, it would have been as effective because we would have been working in our jobs.
Yeah.
You're accurate on that, but that unified voice you're talking about, we don't see that anymore. Is it again
I,
because, like I said earlier, about we're so caught up in our conveniences?
I
Our
got I got
convenience.
a
Go
I
ahead.
got a couple points for that y'all have brought up for me.
Okay.
Going back to the beginning of what you were talking about, Mars, if you reflect and think about it, especially here in Cleveland, um, the Montgomery boycott happened, but when the public was shown what was going on,
Mm-hmm.
was not teaching us, letting us know how it came about.
Right.
So we didn't know about the community organizing that went around and the planning that happened because our parents allowed us to be kids,
Right.
right? There were certain conversations we were not privy to.
Right.
And one of the fallbacks that we're having today is we don't allow our children to be children. They have to deal with adult issues. So
Right.
we didn't see the planning of, okay, we're going to stop riding the bus, but we got to make sure these folks get to their jobs.
Right.
You know, who's going to be willing to do the walking and who's going to set up just this community assistance to give them help, just like I'm doing for the daycare
Right.
at my grandson's daycare, of making sure the elementary school kids can get back to the daycare so their parents don't have to leave work early or curtail
Right.
their day just to get to them before they get done. You know, that kind of organizing in community. What are the needs of the community? Who's going to go get groceries? Who's going to make sure people get fed? Who's going to take care of the elderly? And we got people who are living next to people that they don't know.
Right.
You know, when you got strangers living next to strangers, that just amps up the tension.
Right.
You know, my parents always knew the neighbor to the left and to the right. They
Right.
may not have liked them, they may not have agreed with them,
Mm-hmm.
or even trusted their politics, but in that neighborhood, to protect the children, they had to get along. You need to know who belongs to who.
Right.
Um, those kind of things. And so when you get to the workforce, um, and the knowledge of what's happened in the past, with Greenville and all of those who survived
Mhm.
had to survive,
Right.
which means they had to be employed by those same folks that dropped them bombs.
Right.
And they were always told, if you talk about it, we're gonna kill you.
Right.
See, that's a real thing. And so they didn't educate their children. And you know, if it wasn't for the grandmas and great grandmas that remembered the stories,
Mm-hmm.
one of the bad things about today is that when something happens, it doesn't take no time for it to be in your face.
Yeah.
News is instant now.
Yeah.
You know, the reason why the Vietnam protests happened was because when Walter Cronkite and them put them kids that was fighting in Vietnam on the news, and folks was looking and is that so and so's boy?
Mm-hmm.
Is that my son? And then it's like, oh no, we wasn't told about
Right.
this.
It got
That
real
that
for him.
kind of thing. Yeah.
It was.
So
That's
we
where
we
it get
have to
personal.
right. So we have to understand the filters, and history allows us to reflect. But it's about nobody's teaching organizing.
Right.
We need grassroots organizing.
Mm-hmm.
And we can make, if there were that many people willing to do the blackout yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
then we need to make sure that every 28th of the month, we're not buying for anybody but Black people. That's forcing us to support our own.
Yeah.
And then we can turn that into, okay, this month we're only buying Black owned,
Right. Right. Right.
And
you
you know,
know.
I've told my mother this before. I'm very jealous of her generation. Um, you know, back in the 60s and 70s, you had Malcolm, you had Martin, you had so many others. Can anybody name one outside of Obama? But he's like, I ain't fooling with this nonsense no more. So
Right. Right. Right.
outside of Obama, is there like a great Black leader that we could all be like, tell us what to do? We don't
No,
have that.
no,
We
we
don't
don't
have
need
we don't
that.
have that voice. We don't have that person. We have snippets of certain people. I forget the sister's name in Congress. She's making a
Jasmine
lot of
Crockett.
noise. Yes, Jasmine Crockett. She's making a lot of noise. She's trying to push the envelope and do things, but it's just not there anymore.
Well,
No,
we got to
and you
do
know
it.
what?
It's collective. It's a
When
collective
Governor
effort.
Ron DeSatan, I call him Satan, he was starting that nonsense
Mhm.
a couple years ago with getting rid of certain things in the history books in college and things like that. And I know that this would put these young men and women in a very precarious situation, right? But every college football game should have stopped.
Yeah.
Every NFL game should have stopped.
Mhm.
Every black person that plays on any of these teams should have shut it down.
Yeah.
Muhammad
But that's
Ali,
not
and
fair.
I know,
That's
I know,
not fair
it's not fair.
because if you look at history, and I'm gonna push back with you on a little of this, okay? There's not supposed to be any one person to lead the black community. You don't have one person that leads a white community, or one person that leads the Indian community, or one person that leads the Oriental community. What they had was a conversation amongst themselves,
Right.
right? So what we don't have is a circle of leadership that disagrees like there was
Yeah.
back then. Martin and Kwame
Mhm.
and El Shabazz, all of them came together in conversations, and they had their disagreements and they had their followers, but there was not one person. It was white people that wanted to focus us onto one
Yeah,
person
onto one person. Yeah, you're
and
right.
discredit us.
Right.
So now we have a community, and if you pay attention to what's going on the side, you can come to the community,
Yeah.
and we're having these questions and answers and
Yeah.
conversations now.
Yeah.
You know, if you wanted to know somebody who's in leadership, look up Ash Dash Lee. She's co-director of the Highlander Center in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and she is part of the grassroots organizing teaching system that is going around on community by community
Yeah.
and doing things. And we have to do it that way so that no one person gets mantled with a target on their back. See,
That's
right now
what that's what happened in the
they can't
past.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, you want to have a group, and I've gone back. I've watched the old TV footage of them having that round table, and you
Mhm.
see, all these strong men and women sitting
Yeah.
around this table that were leaders in their communities,
Yeah.
that were well known not only in their communities but nationwide.
Yeah.
And you just named somebody I've never heard of, right? And so it's in her community, she's polarizing and she's moving things, but I don't know about this person.
Yeah.
And when we're in this age of technology and you got Instagram and all these things, if we're removing black faces from CNN, MSNBC, actually there's really none on Fox, but when you're removing all these faces that speak for us, right? And they're no longer available to see on TV. Now we got to make a shift. Everybody got to find a YouTube or an Instagram or something
Mhm.
where they're putting their voices out. They're making sure that overall the nation can hear what they're saying and what they're doing.
Yeah.
But if we don't have that, and right now I just don't see it. I don't see where there is, and if I'm missing it, I'm missing it, but I'm just not seeing this group of individuals
Yeah.
that are coming together. Everybody is doing their own
You
thing,
won't. You
but I
won't.
don't
As
see
big
them
as
all
this
coming together.
country is, as big as this country is, it's about, I don't think people understand what grassroots means. Grassroots is in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with the politics in your neighborhood, you make the community spaces for your families. That's what our great grandparents did. That's what my grandfather did in the midst of KKK land. He let it be known that this is my space here. Now, we can get along because you like some of the things that I do, and I can be hospitable and neighborly, and you don't have to like my politics or who I am. But if I'm not handling in my community, what good is it for me to look at what's going on nationally? Because I don't feel what's happening in the nation. I feel what's happening in my house. I feel what's happening in my backyard. And what they're doing is making sure that we don't talk to each other in our backyards. Do you know all of the seniors that live in your neighborhood? And I grew up in a neighborhood, the Lee Harvard area is where Lamar's was. And I don't think that we had crossed paths until we were grown, right?
Well, I didn't grow
But
up. I didn't grow up in the Lee Harvard area, but I knew the area. But I grew up in Bedford Heights, totally different
you grew
area.
up in Bedford Heights.
Yeah, right.
So you
We still never crossed paths. You know, look like Greg
knew
froze
how to
up there.
build community.
Yeah, yeah.
You
But
build
you're right
community
in
where
that.
you live.
No,
And that in itself is the grassroots part.
yeah,
So no, you wouldn't know Ash because she goes to different communities to teach the people in that community how to organize. And what they do is take them lessons and put it into uh, action.
that's like
And then you
Lee
have
up in New York.
right.
Yeah,
And
and
that's how
it's
you get AOC elected
yeah,
because someone had organized in there for the last 4 or 5 years to make her feel like, look, you can go on out there and do this.
yeah.
You know, we stop looking for instant anything and start putting in the work. And I bet you in 5 years, if we keep doing what we're doing, in 5 years, you'll see change.
Yeah,
You'll
I agree
see
with that.
change.
And that's what I was going to get to. With what the statement I mentioned earlier about the effects. When you look at the effects of what's going on here with this with the blackout that just happened, and it's not just the blackout. Don't think that's the only thing. It's that grassroots part you're talking about, that unification within your communities. That's when you start branching out to the national because you have those leaders that are speaking that voice for that community. Um, that's something that we all can do, whether it's get on your economic development board, your committee in your town, city council, zoning. You know, how's your zoning in your community? And like me and Lawrence, we live in an area of North Texas where there's a lot of building. You know, getting on these commissions and boards, you have an opportunity to then um, decide and help decide what comes in and out of your community. What businesses come in and out of your community. If you know a black business that's trying to get into your community, then we can have a voice and say, you know, we want that community here because the demographics show that we need it. We can use that. I was on the EDC board for a little bit of time in my community. I'm looking to get back on. I think it's a great opportunity to not only getting on these committees, you learn politics, but then you learn the people, the players in politics in your local community. Whether you agree with them or disagree, you learn the players. So now that I've been on that, I know who some of the players are. I know their demeanor, their mindset. I know some of the things they talk about. I know the ones that have reached out to me personally. You know, even after I was not on the board anymore, how they reached out, just invested interest. You know, that's the that invested interest. That's what it's about in your communities. So getting back to it, I know we're at 15 after the hour. I'm going to pose this again: the effects of the blackout. Not looking at blackout as a term, look at it the effects of protest, the effects of what we do as a community. When I say community, not just black people, but those who want to come together and create that greater change. Because it's not going to be just us. When I say it's not going to be just us, we can start the push, but it's got to be the convincing of other people. The influence, our influence got to push other people to make that change. But we can still thrive with us. That's financially, That's the organization. That's how we maneuver jobs. How do we even maneuver within our jobs? You know, okay, do we go into entrepreneurship? There's ways that we can still make a difference within our community, but it's going to take a collective effort to change this country because the country is so embedded with misinformation and division, not just recently, but we're talking about generationally over the last 100 years or so, more than that. So moving forward to round this out, Lawrence, give me in a minute to a minute and a half something that we can do right now to start changing what we perceive to see for the future. What can we do? Like, what is some of the things on your agenda that we can do?
I think I think the economic effect that we can make. I think the blackout was a good start. If we find a way to make this more of a consistent approach when it came to making our voices heard, um, we have to figure out a way to have a consistent boycott that makes sense. Whether it's monthly, maybe we do a week. I think it's a good start.
Mm-hmm.
We also have to do more when it comes to reaching out in the communities and getting people more involved and engaged. I think people, until they feel it, they don't really get involved. As long as my job is fine, I'm just gonna go to work and pay my bills and do my thing. But I think that's where a lot of people are now outraged and upset because now some of these people are starting to feel it. Some of these things are starting to affect them, starting to affect family members and friends. And so now they're becoming upset. I think a good path forward is a consistent economic burden that we put on the system, that we continue to let them know that we are not happy, that what's happening right now is not good for any of us. And I think on the politician side, especially on the Democratic side, they need to start putting forth some type of effort where it shows the plans that they have for this country to combat some of the issues that we're having right now. I think a lot of times the politicians remain too quiet because they think they're doing a good job and they think that everybody knows what they're doing. But if you think about it, people are lazy. They don't want to look up. They don't want to read. They don't want to do the research. I think if we keep moving forward with some type of a boycott, and we just build on what we just did. Again, I don't know the numbers. I don't know how much of an effect it was, but if there was any effect, and we can continue this and continue to grow this effect and make it bigger and better, I think that's a good start.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree with that. What about you, Greg? What can we do going forward in like a minute and a half? Or what you think we can do to go forward and progressing what we perceive to see how we would like to live in the future?
One of the things that we have to accept is that there's not going to be anyone to come rescue us.
Yeah.
And we have to rebuild community the way we understand it. And it starts with getting to know your family. Get in touch with the members of your family. Let the cousins and kids know each other. Let them hear the stories from the elders, the mouth to ear thing. The other thing is to build community around you. Know who lives on your left and on your right, who lives across the street and who lives behind you. If no more than letting yourself be seen, that's going to make a difference. In the world of politics, let's start educating our kids. Our kids are not being taught the truth. So we need to make sure our kids understand and know the truth. They need to know who they're dealing with and what's going on. And the final piece to that puzzle is everybody knows something. Everybody has a skill. And as my friend Karen Hunter would say, bring your brick. There's something that you're good at doing, then do it and do it for them. Do it for the glory of the creator. Do it not because of what you're going to get back, because we've had generational trauma that's going to take generations to heal. So I'm not going to see the healing, but I can do my part by planting the seed and helping the tree grow.
Right.
It's going to be the next generations that get the fruit of that tree. It won't be me.
Right. Totally understand that. And I echo everything that you both have said. And I go back also to history. I think that we need to take time. Like I was telling you how my great grandmother told me the story of Greenville. She didn't know the name of the city, but she knew what had happened. How many times do we sit around that kitchen table and we talk to our families, just educating each other? I know me and my wife, we talk a lot back and forth. She's like she's like up to here, over her head with politics, So it's me really just really feeding her some information right now. But the time that we get together as families and we get together, with my parents, and when we go back to Ohio, we do start having these conversations. But it's time that we start really talking to our young children about what's really happening, what has happened, and ask them the same question. What do you want to see as you get older? What do you want to see? Um, but history is where it starts for me. I think we need to continue to start educating people. That same period of time from the 20 and 21 and 22, when we saw this historical fact come out, don't lose those stories. Don't lose that stuff because those things should fire and motivate you to move forward. Um, if you can imagine if at our age, when we're all older now, but when we were in elementary school and we knew about Hidden Figures, those ladies who helped NASA get, with the space technology and everything, knowing that that could not succeed without them black women. Can you imagine how many scientists the black community would have? How many mathematicians the black community would have? Because we would have had idols to look up to. We would have had somebody to say, wow. Because you know how it is right now. All we had were athletes. That was our motivation, was athletes. So I think that we need to continue to educate our kids about those historical figures that were monumental. If you look at Ben Carson, who really I despise this man right now because of his politics. Can't stand the way he look at life. But you take him as a black man and the works in the medical field that he accomplished, regardless of politics, that's somebody a person could look up to in the field of medicine. That's somebody you can sit back to your young kid and say, you know what? This is somebody who did it and nobody thought he could do it. And you don't have to get into the politics of Ben Carson. You can get into his achievements. Just his achievements alone can show you what we can do as a nation. But I didn't know about him until he was, in the political side of things. I had no idea who that man was. And so we have to continue to press upon our young people and not just black people. We're talking about everybody, about our history. I mentioned this last week about this video that went viral on Instagram or TikTok. This Hispanic guy telling black people that we need to unify, and we have had unity. We just talked about the unity of the '60s. We talking about unity that's happening right now on different areas of social media. We always talk about Karen Hunter and the narrative and being part of Nubia. That's a community that's thriving right now with education, thriving right now with networking. It's so many things going on. So it's existing right now. The thing that's so powerful about that, it's not to the broad public. It's not to the mainstream media where they can discredit you and tear you apart. Everything that you try to do as a movement, they want to discredit you, put a bad name on it, and make it sound like it's the devil. But we got something for them because unity is where it starts, organization, and then education. As we educate our young people, Go ahead, Greg. I know you guys. What was that?
And let me add one more piece to that,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
because you talked about Hidden Figures,
Yeah.
and when I watched that movie, I was 10, and I loved NASA. I loved studying the Mercury and the astronauts and all of that,
Yeah.
right? I can remember having to go to school and not understanding why they stopped the count. Why are we waiting,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mhm.
Had I known that backstory behind it,
Mm-hmm.
that there were people who were called computers,
Yeah.
I would have been into computers a whole lot sooner than I was
Right.
now. You know,
Yeah.
just that part. And that was a little something that I could do
Yeah.
because I got discouraged because I couldn't fly. I wanted
Yeah.
to fly.
Right.
And because my eyes could not be corrected to 20/20,
Yeah.
I could never be a pilot.
Yeah.
And
Oh
I
wow.
wanted to be in control.
Right.
And my uncles and my cousins tried to tell me, well, you can be a navigator. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't until I saw Top Gun that I realized they were trying to encourage me to be a second seater. They couldn't tell me about it,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have to stop shortcutting people's knowledge,
Right. Right.
right? Don't get discouraged. You were created for a purpose.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
Discover your purpose, because no one down here ordered you off a list,
Right.
right? They didn't find you in no menu,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't shape up the genes or whatever, because only God blesses life on
Mm-hmm.
this planet.
Yeah.
You were created for a purpose,
Right.
and you just need to be who you are. So I am who I am. Some folks like me, some folks don't, and it's okay.
Yeah.
But I love you anyway. And if I
Right.
can't love you, I'm still not supposed to do you no harm.
Right. I
I need
totally
to
agree.
step back and see how God loves on you. And that's what we have to get to.
Mm-hmm. I
I
agree.
have to
And
stop.
I look at that as a because I'm winding it down now. We got like 2 minutes, and I'm gonna just get we gotta I don't want to hold everybody up, but everything that you're saying is accurate and right, and it's still always it's gonna rotate back to history. You know, Lawrence talking about the things he done in history of reading back and watching some old movies and getting educated. You're mentioning the same thing. I'm mentioning the same thing. Let's start there with educating those around us, and then also building that community around us in our own community, in our own towns. I want to let everybody know that you are watching Grit, Grace, and Progress. We come on every Saturday, unless we don't be on that Saturday. But we're trying to be on every Saturday. You can catch us on YouTube. We're going to be posting to Instagram, and if I can find my my right words here to put on the screens, I can get this up there for you. But our schedule is going to be every Saturday. We're going to be on, like I said, YouTube Live, 9 a.m. Central Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And you can also catch us on YouTube and Instagram. Please check us out, and we will see. I can't find it again. There you go. These are our tags right here. YouTube and Instagram, 9 a.m. Central Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And we have a host of 7 people that's on our team right now. And at any given time, you can see a mixed combination of those. Today we had guest Tiffany Knox was on with us today, and we could always have our reliable Lawrence and Greg with us. So we want to say thank you, and we look forward to seeing you next week on Grit, Grace, and Progress. Have a good one.